So in this rainbow piece of candy, I have chunked in all the shapes of lights and darks that I see, kind of over exaggerating the lights and darks in each area. When I go through and add in the main color, it will make certain areas look darker and certain areas look lighter, so I can still build up and layer over top of that. And it's still going to look like it's a rainbow candy, and it's going to look like the colors that you want it to look like. But when you add in the little dips and valleys that you see because of the sugar granules, it's going to make it look more like the candy actually feels. So you're creating that texture by looking for those lights and darks. So it's important that you don't just go in and lay in the color that you're mainly seeing first. It's important that you build up and that you get those lights and darks chunked in first so that they can come through the main color. You can see I'm working on this last row where it's red, but I'm also bringing in greens and blues for like the darker areas, and I have yellows and whites in the lighter areas, and I'm kind of going back and forth and working on blending those things. And so now it's going to look more textured and it's going to look more like the candy actually looks. Now I'm drawing in my shadows. My cast shadows. It's important that they all fall in the same direction, so you need to think about where your light source is. So kind of establish that and marking where those are going to fall. Now I'm coming in and I'm bringing in blues and purples because they're very dark colors, and it also looks good because I have a lot of yellows and oranges in this drawing. So I'm also thinking about, there's the main part of the shadow and there's kind of like a core, and there's lights and darks in the shadow. So I want to recreate that and emphasize this a little bit more than you see it in my photograph. So even with the shadows, I'm bringing in multiple colors. So you saw I brought in some reds. And the shadows will give it the effect that it's actually sitting or laying on something. So it's an important part of the definition process. And so right up next to the object, it's going to be the darkest. Notice my hands are pretty dirty. It's important to go wash your hands often. So now I'm laying in just some of the background colors that I want, and I'm using white and yellow and blue, and I'm building up and layering up. So you can see I'm not just going to use one color, I'm going to use multiple colors and bringing in some purple. And I kind of want it to look like a light blue, but I'm not just going to use a light blue. I'm bringing in many other colors as well. And I can eventually get it built up and pretty thick, but I'll see some of these other colors in as well. It's important that you bring the colors that you have in the foreground into the background. You don't want to introduce completely new colors into your background. So if you bring in a color that you've never used before, you need to make sure that you come and you bring that color into the foreground. See, I'm just building up, layering up. It can eventually look pretty smooth.